Hello, I'm Jason Tierney, Managing Editor of Dental Sleep Practice, a MedMark publication. I want to welcome you to a live discussion and Q&A with David Walton, Dr. John Tucker, and Dr. Kathi Wilson. In today's webinar, we'll be discussing the new PDAC-Medicare approved oral appliances from Whole, the Respire Pink AT and the Respire Pink EF AT. David, CEO at Respire Medical, whom I've known for many years, will explain the background of the product development, while Dr. Tucker and Dr. Wilson will share their own experiences with the devices. And before we get started, I'd like to invite all of you, the viewers today, to whether you're joining us by computer or via mobile app, to use the question box in the control panel to ask your questions. We will get to all of them at the end of the session. Anything we don't get to, we'll circle back with you. But I'm really pleased to introduce today's panelists, who are people that I've known all of them for many years. First, David Walton, who co-founded Respire 10 years ago in 2010, just 2 years after graduating from the Royal College of Surgeons in England. You'll be able to tell by his accent that he's not from Tennessee. Over the past 10 years, he's grown Respire into one of the world device companies, and in 2015, he led the acquisition of Respire by Whole. With this new partnership, they've been developing new and innovative products for the for several years and for many years to come, which is what the focus will be on today. Also joining us is Dr. John Tucker, like myself, Jason Tierney, a fellow JT, who's maintained a private practice for almost 40 years, as well as lecturing throughout the country for a number of different organizations, including his own Tucker Educational Excellence. He holds 6 dental patents and founded Erie Dental Sleep Therapy, LLC in 2007. He was named one of the best sleep doctors in 2012 and 2013. And last, but certainly not least, Dr. Kathi Wilson, who after graduating from Grand Valley State University with a bachelor's degree in biomedical sciences, went to the University of Michigan School of Dentistry, earning her DDS in 2000. That's 20 years ago. She was a general dentist. She's a general dentist with a private practice until opening the Center for Sleep Apnea and TMJ in 2019. She's in her 3rd year of serving on the Education Committee of the American Academy of Dental Sleep Medicine and is the current chair of that Education Committee. So thank you all for joining us today. Thanks for being patient while I sing the praises of your past and your present. And we're here to talk about Herbst appliances. This is a device that's been used for the treatment of sleep apnea for many, many years. And I'm not quite certain, or some of our listeners may not be quite certain, why we need another version of a Herbst. So with that, can someone help our listeners out there?
David, I think that's a great question for you, sir.
Yeah, so over the last 3 years, it took some time to develop this product, and really what we've done is listen to what the customer complaints have been with regards to other devices that they've used on the market, and ultimately that's what drives our R&D is that customer feedback, and it's something that we have our ear close to the ground on. And really the need comes from 2 things. One is the need of a device that's easy to adjust, it's very simple to use, but also because of medical insurance reimbursements going down and the reduction in Medicare reimbursements, it also needs to be cost effective, right? I think the days of us developing $500–600 appliances for the mass market are few and far between. So with those 2 things in mind, we looked at the design that we've been using for many years and said, look, it really can be a lot easier for patients to use. And certainly if it's a Medicare and older patient, it needs to be simple. It needs to be simpler what we were providing now. Hence why we've on board with the Respire Pink AT. And we'll certainly talk about some of the benefits and features, but that's really the background of how we got to where we are now.
I personally think it's important to remember there are thousands of traditional HERPS appliances out there that are serving patients just fine. So I think we need to remember sometimes it's the patient and their anatomy and what they are doing to the appliances that some of those customer complaints are coming from. It's actually the patient. And I wouldn't necessarily throw the old HERPS under the bus, but I think that we need to develop some newer technologies to deal with some of those other patient anatomy and function issues.
Well, I think if you threw the HERPS under the bus, it's probably not covered by warranty. But I think that's a great point, Dr. Wilson, about patients. Maybe that there are patients doing just fine in other HERPS appliances. I guess my question to you, David, would be those patients that maybe do struggle, let's say with titrating their HERPS appliance, how might the AT address some of those issues?
Yeah, and as Dr. Wilson said, the traditional HERPS has been very successful for many years. But I think one of the challenges comes with, as she said, with the patient. When you have a very small hole that you're trying to get a very small key into, that's not obviously the easiest way for a patient or a doctor to adjust the device. And the technique of adjusting it, where you put the key in, turn it, take it out, put it in, turn it again, you're doing that multiple times. We looked at that and said, look, that could be a lot easier. So we have, not only a new key with a larger handle, which we have right here, it's the hole that it's going into is wider and larger, and you're just putting the key in once and turning it then the required number of turns. So there's no taking it in, turning it, and that in and out motion anymore. So, trying to simplify the adjustment mechanism was a big part of this.
Gotcha. And I was just going to say, Dr. Tucker, I believe, if I'm mistaken, correct me, but I think that you took part in some of the beta testing for the AT. What did you find as far as that titration?
Thank you for allowing me to be part of that, David. I did my first HERPS appliance 15 years ago. And David, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to throw you back a question. How long has the HERPS been around, and why was it originally developed?
It was developed for an orthodontic usage for jaw repositioning. How long it's been around, you put the spot there, maybe 30 years, but again, I'm not up to date on that one.
All right, so what I've heard is the 50s, so it's been around and tried and true appliance, once again used for orthodontics. And if you look at the majority of our oral appliances, they come from the ortho industry. And so every appliance, bar some, I'm not speaking of all those that we now have, I think 187 FDA cleared appliances to choose from. So, I mean, it's been around for a while and it's a great device. The biggest problem I've had with the HERPS has been titration. And I've always said, I never give the keys to the kingdom to the patient, meaning I have never let the patient titrate their own appliance. Why? Because they always mess it up. They never get it right. Before, the old system was one arm went one way, and then you had to turn the appliance over, and the other arm went the other way. I had demo models that I would let patients practice on, and they would come back, and one side would be 3 millimeters horizontal. Yeah, and the other side's like totally retrusive. And I'd say, do you have any jaw joint problems? And the question, they're like, no, why? Should I? It's like, oh no, I'm just checking. And I'd always go to the lab and say, let me readjust this and tweak it a little bit for you and say, you know what, you really don't need the adjustment key anymore. So I learned from the school of hard knocks, if you will, not to let the patients have the keys to the kingdom. First of all, this new arm with 4 turns equals a millimeter. And in my previous presentations, I would actually take a quarter round burr in a high speed, on the traditional HERPS, I'd mark a line. And I'd say 4 full rotations for the doctor, not the patient, was a millimeter. Or you can do 16 quarter turns. There's no patient that's going to understand that. A lot of doctors didn't understand that. So I think one of the big things is that now we have symmetrical titration, meaning both arms go in the right direction. 4 turns equals 1 millimeter. And I advocate advancement in 1 millimeter increments. So it's easy for seniors to use that may have issues with limited manual dexterity. And so in the first time in 15 years, I'm actually comfortable letting a patient titrate their own appliance. And I'm, we'll get to the measuring scale as we go through the presentation. That's huge. We can talk about the whole medicine, telemedicine, and how that works through doxy.me. That's what I personally use. But I think that you nailed this 100%, David, with this new design.
So Dr. Wilson, do you send patients typically home with their the keys to titrate their own appliances?
I certainly do, actually. I do because I have so many patients that travel an hour or 2 to see me. So for them to drive in for an adjustment wouldn't be possible. The nice thing is that I've been able to make some videos that I can share with them, and telemedicine has certainly helped as well with being able to, put an appliance really close to the webcam, and this is where you need to put in your key, things like that. So it has helped, but having a design as simple as this is going to make things infinitely easier. My personal issue with a traditional Hertz has been more the screw extension with my grinders, who, even though their sleep apnea is well controlled, they still continue to grind. Maybe they're on SSRIs, or it's just what they do. And that little screw extension is the weak link, and it's going to give, it's going to bend. So having a reinforced barrel design just eliminates that issue for us. Do we have sometimes people that titrate unevenly? Absolutely, is what it is. Most of the time we're able to point it out to them, educate them, either in person or via video or telemedicine, and we can correct the issue most of the time. But yeah, it's still a challenge.
Well, so both of you mentioned telemedicine. And David, I know that you were sharing with me that there are a number of dentists that are seeing the value and the benefit in the AT for telemedicine specifically. Both of you mentioned it, and with the advent of COVID, of course, telemedicine's become increasingly widespread. So David, would you mind just talking us through, kind of giving us painting a picture for us about why this device, why the AT is particularly indicated for telemedicine?
Yeah, so as Dr. Wilson and Dr. Tucker said, the ease of adjusting and ease of moving it forward is a lot easier for the patients to understand. The key in itself is a lot easier for the patients to hold, but because you're not having to count 16 quarter turns, which I think we've all done this, where we're counting and then we get to like 10, and then like, hold on, was there a 10 or was there a 12? All right, let me go all the way back and start again. So
we're all divisible by 2. It's okay.
But the point of the measuring scale helps you see exactly where that's being adjusted to. So the patient in theory could hold it up to the camera and say, okay, this is where I'm at, and you could quite easily say, okay, you're at 2 millimeters there, you're at 2 millimeters there. That's good to go, whatever it is. But another point is the level of advancement, because no doctor wants the patient staff to come back because they've maxed out their appliance and you need to send it back to the lab. So being able to go up to 7 millimeters just reduces that chance that you're going to have to send it back to the lab for a reset and to go even further. Now, we can get into a whole discussion about taking the bioregistration and setting it at somewhat of an optimal position, but having that extra advancement hopefully can the number of resets and the patients having to come back into the office, and certainly during COVID, is something we all want to avoid.
So just to be sure that I understand, there's 7 millimeters of advancement available with the AT?
That's correct, yes. And on the traditional, the herbs design that we were providing, and still provide, by the way, it only has 5 millimeters of advancement. So that extra 2 millimeters is hopefully enough to reduce those resets.
Sure. And speaking of traditional herps, I mean, one of the things that I've heard and actually experienced myself is getting to a treatment position, and then it seems like after some period of time, I don't know if there's if the mechanism is stripped or what happens, but it doesn't hold the position, it retrudes. Does this new design have anything to have an effect there?
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear Dr. Tucker and Dr. Wilson's thoughts on this. But what we've done essentially is we added a resistance layer to the inside coil of the screw, so that provides the resistance, so the screw can't really turn on its own. It does need a little bit more strength to turn it, but obviously with the new handle, you're able to do that quite easily. So the resistance layer really holds it in the position that it needs to be in without allowing it to retrude. But we'd heard that from a lot of our clients, and I don't know if Dr. Wilson, whether you'd seen that with the herps design where it had kind of retruded after some time. It generally doesn't happen straight away, but I don't know if you guys have seen much of that of an issue.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a bummer. You know, people will take pictures at night and then in the morning, and it's clear that the barrel moved. So yeah, I'm extraordinarily happy that that's one of the upgrades, so to speak, of this new design.
What about you, JT? What have you seen with the AT?
Well, we're in the early phases of it, and so far, you know, I have not seen the issues we've had with the traditional system or the traditional herps. David, I'll tell you what I think. You know, remember the double nut system that came out?
Yeah.
And that was to help or eliminate these problems that we've seen in the past with the traditional herps, right? Anybody that's used one of those herps that had the 2 nuts on it, and I understand the principle of that, you get one nut to lock against the other. Titration of that was very, very difficult. It actually took 2 people to do it in our lab. My assistant would help me, and there was absolutely no way the patient would be able to comprehend how to do that at home. So I thought that system was very cumbersome. I think with this new resistance layer that you've provided on there, that we're not going to see the loosening and the migration of the nuts on the traditional herps.
And that's what you've seen thus far, correct, David?
Yeah, certainly from ours so far. We went through a whole beta test and then a soft launch before we got to this point where we're at right now, launching it. So yeah, we haven't seen that issue, thankfully. And I think as you know, Jason, the company that acquired Respire several years ago is a material science company at heart. So it's really with their help that we're able to develop these kind of this layer inside to provide that resistance. So it's taken us 3 years to get to where we are right now, but we're really confident that we've overcome those previous issues.
Yeah, David, with WholeU and their background in chemicals and materials and their success in that area, in those fields, as you were talking about the resistance layer, I was thinking, what a perfect marriage you've got there. I mean, as far as engineering, and then you were talking about it so confidently, I thought maybe you went back to school and got a degree in chemical engineering or something.
Thankfully, we have a lot of chemists and a lot of PhD doctors in Mitsui who are material scientists. So yeah. I learn a lot from them. But it's great to have that support. And as we move forward in new products that we're working on, even for the future, and for the next year, 2 years, that we have that ingrained knowledge. So it's institutional knowledge, I guess. So.
Yeah, and this herps, like many other herps, is a PDAC approved device. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes. Yep. Yep.
And for you, Dr. Wilson, Dr. Tucker, I mean, how important is PDAC approval when it comes to appliance selection for you?
It's up there, unfortunately. Yeah, and I just want to echo the millimeter measurement tool that's built into it is different than just the millimeter ruler that's imprinted on the appliance itself. I think that is probably one of the biggest issues as far as patient management and maybe one-sided jaw pain because they're uneven. And whether it's in person or via telemedicine, that is infinitely easier to look at, educate the patient on, correct, and be able to move forward confidently. So yeah, Medicare approval for sure, and having an ease, several issues with that, millimeters and the key being bigger and easier to turn, just all of those things with that particular patient population is pretty huge.
Mm-hmm. And with Medicare, I believe it's what, 5 years for replacement, and I know most appliances come with a year warranty. What about, if I can ask David, what about the AT, the warranty on this device? Is it a year?
It is. Most of our devices have been a year, but from this month we've increased it for the AT to 3 years, and now all of our devices now have a 3-year warranty on the devices.
Okay, 3 years.
So David, can you do me a favor and explain what that 3-year warranty means to somebody that's not familiar with that, please?
Yeah, thanks, JT. So essentially, if the device breaks or fails from a manufacturing reason, then we'll repair or replace the device. The only time that the warranty wouldn't be covered is if there was, the patient had a new crown, bridge, for some reason it didn't fit any longer. But usually, well, with most of our cases, we're getting in now 3D digital scans. We're around about 60% digital, 40% traditional impressions. And obviously we reach out to the doctors to make sure any distortions are corrected or anything that can be corrected, certainly on a model or an impression. But if the doctor wants to go ahead with it at that point and then at some point it didn't fit, then that wouldn't be covered. But thankfully, as most doctors are transitioning towards digital, we're seeing certainly a reduction in those distortions in the models and impressions. But I would say that it's not a perfect solution. Transitioning over to digital and doesn't eradicate all of the distortions, but certainly reduces a lot of them.
So David, that 3-year warranty doesn't cover the fact that the appliance has been consumed by the patient's dog, correct?
That is correct. Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
And what about Dr. Wilson throwing it under the proverbial bus?
Can I throw this in really quickly for all the listeners? Depending on your state, I know that Medicare has extended and waived a lot of their usual restrictions on how often they will replace an appliance. So I do believe as long as we are still under a state of emergency, and it might depend state to state, whether your state is still in a state of emergency, they may waive that. I know in my state that is waived right now, that's Michigan. So check with your state, check with Medicare. You might be able to get your Medicare patients an upgraded appliance or a new appliance sooner than what you normally would.
Good to know.
So David, I have a question for you. So
Sure.
on the new AT, we've got this clean cut coil edge that helps to provide for the advancement. Talk about what that means for corrosion, because I mean, I've seen patients in appliances they've had their same appliance for 10 years and it's going strong. I don't replace an appliance every 5 years just because insurance covers it. I replace it based on need. So we have seen corrosion issues in the past. So talk to us about what this new design and that clean cut coil edge is all about and how it plays into the corrosion.
Yeah, without getting too much into the IP of the whole situation, but if you can imagine the coil inside the screw, and the corrosion and the breakdown usually occurs if that edge is not smooth enough and has not been cut fine enough. So as you're cutting the inside coil of that screw, if it's not fine enough or not smooth enough, then over time that friction causes a breakdown in the material, which can cause it to to even rust. I've seen in some cases, or whether it's just locking of the coil. So again, with our material science partners, we're able to look at that and to test what is going to give us that finish and that edge that we need to, so it's not going to break down and lock up or corrode in any way.
That's great. And I'll tell you what, one of the things that I like about the new design is that smooth barrel that allows us to, I'm a big fan of providing the patient have the ability to go into lateral excursions as well as protrusive. And talk about that smooth barrel and why it helps to allow that, nice, smooth movement.
So there's 2 points to it. First of all, within the arm, if I can show you here, as the barrel kind of slides in and out, we needed to use a metal that could be polished fine enough so you can get that anterior posterior movement. But a big portion of it is the positioning of the fixing elements, because if the position of the fixing elements causes a torquing of the arm, then it's not going to allow you to have that freedom of lateral movement. So that's one of the key points to this is, and again, we went through many years of figuring out this position, but that's really the critical part of having that freedom of movement without having it too being restricted. It's often not even the arm, it's that angle of the fixing elements, which is dictated because of the angle of the jaw, right? If you have a very kind of square jaw, then it's usually quite straightforward to do. But if you have a small, very curved arch, then the positioning of those fixing elements becomes even more critical than it would on a standard design. So again, these are things that we're learning and improving upon all the time, and it's often down to feedback from guys like you.
Well, thank you. I can't wait to get my new device.
Yeah.
I sent you out the models yesterday, so
nice.
Looking forward to the new AT over my current tank, and want to speak firsthand about what it's like to wear one. So very excited. But I can tell you this, the appliances that we've delivered to date, the patient feedback and experience is very positive. And for me, one of the big things is that being able to do follow-up visits via telemedicine instead of having the patients come back in. And I feel really comfortable about that. And for me, that's a huge change. I know that Dr. Wilson has made some videos and done all she can for her patients to be compliant and be able to titrate their appliances at home. But this one is a no-brainer. The key mechanism, the measurement slide, you nailed it, sir.
Well, thanks so much. Appreciate that.
And David, you mentioned that the team was continuing with your innovation, looking at product development over the next couple of years. You gonna share any spoiler alerts here?
I probably shouldn't really. I would love to, but
come on, David, everybody's doing it.
We are, and it really shouldn't be too far down the line. Really, well, about to submit FDA approval on another design. But digital production is obviously something that we're looking at as well. But just going digital for the sake of going digital, just because it sounds cool, is really not the objective. I think with some digital designs, the fit is even harder to achieve because you don't have the trained eyes on it looking at the undercut of a tooth and really measuring that undercut with a surveyor. Yes, it's done digitally, and in theory it should be even more accurate. But through R&D that we've done is, it's the urge to go digital in terms of production. But when you look at, okay, why are we doing this? Are you really getting a better fitting device? I'm not 100% sure on the fitting design. I'm not sure really the benefit for the patients, but it is something that we're working on. It's something we're developing to move in towards a digital production for sure.
Gotcha. And David, I mentioned at the top of the broadcast that viewers should enter their questions, and a question came through that I think is really interesting. because as much as I speak with dentists about what's important when it comes to treating sleep patients, money, understandably so, is always way down at the bottom, right? All of us have this healthy sense of altruism, but one of the questions that came in 3 times already is, how much does it cost? I don't know how to reconcile those two, but apparently there's a lot of concern about the cost. So what is the cost, if you can share it, for an AT?
The cost from the launch until the end of October is $299, and then beyond that initial introductory price, it'll be $359, unless, of course, you have volume discounts. So $299 is an introductory price to try and get the ball moving. I know officially the official line is, price is important. It's about the design, but as we hear most days, it's price is an issue.
Sure, but so Medicare, PDAC approved Herbst with numerous iterative improvements, 3-year warranty, $299. Is that what I'm on?
That is exactly correct. Yeah.
Okay. And if someone, one of the dentist viewers, wants to learn more about the AT, wants to talk to you about ordering one, has questions, whatever it might be, what's the best way for them to get in contact with the Respire team to learn more?
Yeah, so if they'd like to read up on it more, then wholeu.com is the website to go to there. We have recently had a launch video with some doctors and testimonials on there to talk more about the specifics of what they've experienced. But if anybody has any more specific questions, they can contact us here at the office. The office number is 718-643-7326, or my direct line is 718-395-3061. Don't share that with anyone.
Is that yourself?
It is not. It's my office phone. It's my direct line.
Can you give us your Twitter handle as well?
Say again, sorry?
Can you give us your Twitter handle as well? Your IG address?
Well, less so on Twitter these days, I think. It's, but actually, I'm not sure. At Respire Medical, Twitter, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. JT, other than what you shared today, I know you made a lot of these, prescribed a lot of these during the beta process. Any other key takeaways that you want to share with listeners, or let David know about?
I think everybody that knows, myself personally, the Herbst has been my go-to appliance. When I started out 15 years ago, David, you know this, I started out with a dorsal device. I had some major issues with the dorsal device, and when I transitioned into the Herbst, I found that one of the most important things was the ability to have the patient go through those lateral excursions as well as protrusive. So, you have just taken a great design and made it better with your improvements. And, we've discussed that along the way. And, I wish you all the best with the whole U team. And I know some of the stuff you're working on. We've discussed some other ideas. So I think it's like, hold on to your hat. It's a great time to be involved with sleep and having sleep be part of your practice. And I thank you and your entire team for the phenomenal job that you do. I think one of the things I learned from you early on, David, and you are a CDT, and there are not a lot of CDTs that make oral appliances. You know my extreme prosthetic background and my whole connection with the CDT world. It's the fact that you pay attention to where that arm is placed. And I've got to say this, not every Herbst is a Herbst. And
Amen.
Dr. Wilson, I see you shaking your head. And
Why
David, I've had other doctors talk to you that have had.
Why are you shaking your head so vigorously that not every Herbst is a Herbst? A Herbst
I've certainly had Herbsts made by different labs over the years. And yeah, they are not all the same, not even close.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
And so if I can just continue
another level.
Well, I think what Dr. Tucker was about to say and what he was saying about placement of arms and the consistency and where things should be. And yeah, it's no brainer, no brainer. Yeah, just Respire is heads and shoulders above the other labs.
Well,
Thank you.
and
I just saw David's head get a little bit bigger. It's starting to fill his square.
No, but I think look, everybody wants the same thing, right? Everyone wants a device that the turnaround time's good, but the main thing is that it fits and you're not spending too much time adjusting it, right? That's whether it's digital or traditional, right? That's what everybody wants. Yes, price is important, but you just don't want to get a device back that you're like, I'm gonna have to insert this thing. It's gonna take me 30 minutes. Like nobody wants that. So simplicity, ease of insertion is so important. I believe for the doctor's point of view.
And we just had another question that came through a couple times is about actual modifications to the device. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, you know, Dr. Wilson, if you want to kind of jump in and say how you modify the devices, I think you've, as you said before, you've been very specific on what you'd like to do and adjustments. So would you like to share a little bit?
Sure. I think my modifications tend to gear around the tongue and the size of the tongue and placement of the tongue in that patient's mouth. And you know, your tongue is basically parked in a little garage, and you really can't afford to hog up tongue space. So you've got to be very careful about your appliance design. I think, you know, I love my ATs. And I love my EFs even more. Whether it's pinks or blues, don't really care. I personally wear a blue EF and love it. And I think that just being very aware of tongue space and respectful of it and limiting how much space you're hogging up with your appliance is a key to success. It minimizes how much advancement you tend to have to do, just because tongues are opportunistic. You give them space, they're going to hog it up. So if you can give them space, they're going to get out of the throat.
Yeah, I think like on the tongue space point of view, you know, reducing the lingual coverage is really important. But one thing that I think everybody needs to be aware of is you don't want to lose retention. So you know, we utilize ball clasps in very specific areas. On the reduced lingual coverage, and certainly on the lower, it's more important than ever as the tongue's trying to lift that device up. So modifying the lingual coverage of the device, the anterior opening is something that obviously we can do and we do all the time. But another point is around vertical, and JT and I talk about this a lot, and I've been to many of his lectures where he talks about vertical. But you know, just because you have a 4 millimeter of an anterior space doesn't mean that any device can be made at 4 millimeters, because it's the curve of speed which is going to dictate that vertical, right? So if you have a very small space in the back and you need to get a flat plane in there with the vast majority of devices, then that curve of speed is dictating the vertical. So the question is, okay, what do? Do we just increase the vertical and say it is what it is? I'm sorry, but the curve of speed is off. Or do we look at the design and do we modify it? Are we using the right material? Are we using the right hard material, the right soft material? Do we need to do mesial rests on the mesial of the last molar, so we're not fully covering that molar to compensate for the distal being so high? You know, the customization of these devices is so important, and we talk a lot about it. Yes, they're all custom devices, but are they really customized, right? Like, are you really doing what needs to be done? And like talking to us in the lab, obviously we've done tens of thousands of these at this point, but listening to doctors like Dr. Tucker and Dr. Wilson and how they modify their devices is really important for a lot of these new dentists getting into this, to really understand how and when to customize the devices.
So David, one of the things that you and I have spent a tremendous amount of time on is talking about the curve of Spee and the curve of Wilson, Dr. Wilson, that most people don't even understand. And in my Dr. Wilson, you laugh. I'm sorry. I mean,
I'm not
I've
laughing
done,
at you. I'm laughing at Jason's face.
I've done
Me?
over 2,500
Yes.
hours of CE on sleep. And you can ask David, he's been at countless programs. You bring up curve of Spee and curve of Wilson, and you're going to look at most doctors, their eyes are going to look like deer's eyes and headlights. Right, David?
Yeah, it's our prosthetic background, right?
So part of the problem is explaining what curve of Spee and curve of Wilson are, and explaining to them that prior to them even trying to set the bite, to pay attention to what curve of Spee and curve of Wilson are. And then David, you've done a great job, and your lab has done a great job in helping dentists to understand that. I've sent you countless number of doctors, and Dr. Wilson, you'll understand this, that they say all their herped arms break. And it's like, well, your herped arm is not set in the right position. And did you pay attention to curve of Spee and curve of Wilson? And you know when the phone goes dead for like 30 seconds, that radio silence, right?
Dr. Google?
It's like, right. Well, so what you're talking,
What?
right. So, you know, David, you've done a great job in overcoming those. And Dr. Wilson, I agree with you. I'm always doing something different. I'm sure I give David a twitch when I ask him to do something different. Like this week, I think I really sent him over the edge big time with what I sent him. And that's probably why you like to drink a pint every night when you get off the phone with me. But that's good. And I think that's what we need to do, is challenge each other. No one's right and no one's wrong. That's not what it's about. It's about what is the best appliance for that patient. And Dr. Wilson, I'm sure you're asked all the time, every program I do, what's the best appliance for my patient? And my answer is the one that's right for that patient. And there is no 100% carte blanche appliance that's going to fit every patient. And you alluded to that, Dr. Wilson, and I agree with you. There have to be modifications based on the patient's anatomy, especially curve of Spee, curve of Wilson, number of teeth present. I mean, we can go on and on and on with that. And David, you and your team do a fantastic job at paying attention to that. So continue the great progress that you've made. The AT is a home run, 100% improvement on our current technology. And I look forward to what you guys are going to bring to the market in the near future.
Yeah, kudos, David. Any final words? Maybe give one more shout out about how they can get a hold of the Respire team to learn more about the AT and send their first case, as well as the price, and any other kind of closing comments that you want to impart upon the listening audience at home.
Yeah, you know, first of all, thank you all for being on here and your kind words with this new device. You know, again, we have a new product. We're trying to get people to try it out, and the $299 price point is hopefully going to allow people to make that initial step. It's going to have a 3-year warranty on the device, and if anybody wants to reach out to us directly here, website is wholeu.com. The office number is 718-643-7326. Yeah, and my email address is david@respiremedical.com. At respiremedical.com on Twitter. Is anyone on Twitter these days? I don't know.
Great. Yeah. And just to mention again that for any viewers, that if we didn't get to your questions now, keep them coming, and we'll certainly respond to you shortly after the conclusion of the program. We'll respond to you via email with the answers to those questions. But with that said, I really want to thank those of you that have submitted questions, but we've run out of time today. So again, submit the questions. We'll get back to you via email. And shortly after we conclude here, we'll email you a replay of the presentation. So keep an eye out for that email. And I want to say thank you for being here, for attending, and really a big shout out and a thank you to David, whom I've known for many, many years and have watched him really grow the Respire Medical organization. Innovative new products, a full suite of products, and a great team over there. David's also got a great sense of humor, so if you can catch him on the phone or shoot him an email, you're in for a chuckle, I'm certain. And then also Dr. John Tucker, whom I've learned a great deal from over the years, and am proud to count as a friend. And then of course Dr. Kathi Wilson. Virtual high five to you. I always appreciate, you've always got some insight and some very sobering views of the dental sleep medicine world. So I always appreciate what you have to offer. I appreciate you being here. And then of course, want to give a big shout out to the sponsor for this webinar, Whole You, who again has a full suite of oral appliance products, gas portfolio, and for a whole swath of patient conditions. And as mentioned, they can all be modified. So thank you all. Thanks for being here. Until next time, be well, get some great rest, and good night.
Thank you, everyone.
That was fun. Thanks, guys.